Welcome to the Dyno Six Pack Dynasty Football Podcast. My name is Jordan Schultz, and I'll be your host for today. Today, we're going to be talking about my post-draft rookie tight end rankings. Before we get started, though, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you can see more videos just like this in the future. While you're at it, make sure to become an all-access member over at Fantasy Six Pack to view all of our award-winning rankings, draft cheat sheets, DFS projections, betting tools, and we have all sorts of other great content. Another great perk of becoming an all-access member is you get access to our Discord forum where you get the ability to message me directly and all of our other great writers that can help out with your fantasy leagues and give you suggestions that are more tailored specifically to your leagues and your settings. Head on over to fantasy6pack.net to become a member there. It is well worth your money, believe me. All right, let's get started with our rookie tight ends today. So starting off at the top in tier one, we have three players here for me. Coming in at number one is going to be Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. I give him a dynasty outlook of an A, which kind of equivalent to a elite level fantasy starter. Keep in mind, this is the tight end position, so there's a good chance that these guys may take 2 to 3 years to really develop. But Kincaid's a guy that I think will more than likely be starting to show some flashes by the end of year one, if not even sooner. He was tier one for me pre-draft, but I had him number 2 behind Michael Mayer. I did jump him up, dream landing spot with the dream draft capital. He's going to match up with Josh Allen. I think he's a pretty easy late first round pick in tight end premium leagues at this point. Coming in at number 2, we have Michael Mayer of the Las Vegas Raiders. He was picked in the second round with number 4 overall. Give him a dynasty outlook of an A-, which kind of comes in as a high-level starter. With Darren Waller heading over to New York, there's definitely going to be an opportunity for targets there. Jimmy Garoppolo, their new quarterback there, he always had really good chemistry with George Kittle over in San Francisco. And that, doesn't mean you can just sub Michael Mayer and he becomes George Kittle, of course. But Michael Mayer does have a skill set that I believe is going to get him on the field rather than later. He is able to contribute in the passing game, as he showed both of his last 2 years at Notre Dame, as well as he's a good blocker. So he's going to be on the field early with that, helping Josh Jacobs get open and springing holes. So still have him in tier 1, but dropped him from number 1 to 2 just because Kincaid got that great capital landing spot there. I mean, you really can't beat being paired up with Josh Allen. Coming down to number 3, and the last guy in tier 1 for me is Sam LaPorta to the Detroit Lions. He went with the 3rd pick overall in round 2. And I give him an A- as well, which is the same grade as Mayer, which is, high-level fantasy starter potential. He was a guy that was a huge late riser in the process. Kind of came on strong. He was a guy that the first time I did my run through, I think he came in tight end 7 or 8. And then when I came back into my second and third run throughs, he moved all the way up to number 4 pre-draft. So he jumped up a spot with the great draft capital landing spot in Detroit. He really doesn't have any competition at all for tight end targets there in Detroit. They have some decent receivers there. J.Mo Williams starting off the year suspended. That's going to give him a chance to kind of get acclimated a little bit earlier potentially. He's a guy that I think could be like a sneaky play in the second half of the season, kind of like Chig Okonkwo last year. Tight end takes a while, but the opportunity should be there for him. I do like the talent. Another guy that can contribute as a pass catcher and a blocker. So as long as he's able to, keep up with the normal learning curve, I think he'll be on the field fairly early. Moving on to tier 2, we have 2 guys that comprise this tier for me. Coming in at number 4, we have Luke Musgrave of the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to give him a dynasty outlook of a B+, which turns into essentially like an above average starter for fantasy purposes. He was picked in the second round with the 11th pick. It's mostly going to be him and then third round tight end that they drafted Tucker Kraft that's going to be in the tight end room this year. They really don't have anybody else that I have any interest in for fantasy purpose. This is a battle in camp I'm going to be watching very closely to, listening to news coming out, seeing if one of these guys kind of has an upper hand in developing chemistry with incoming quarterback Jordan Love. Outside of Christian Watson, there's not a lot of high-end receivers there in Green Bay. That means somebody's going to profit here. You got a young quarterback. One of the best things you can do for them is get them a tight end that can be a safety blanket for them. I think one of these 2 guys is going to be that. It's just going to be kind of tough to pick which one. If I'm betting now, I'm going to go with Luke Musgrave. That's an easy bet in a sense because he had the higher draft capital, but I did also have him higher in the pre-draft process. I had him at number 5 coming in. He moved up to number 4. Rounding out tier 2 for me is Luke Schoonmaker of the Dallas Cowboys. I also am giving him an outlook of a B+, which is, an above average starter. Pre-draft rank, I had him number 7, so he did jump up 2 spots to number 5. He was selected in the second round as well with pick 27. He will be stepping into having to compete with Jake Ferguson, who's another young tight end I like quite a bit there in Dallas. But Luke Schoonmaker did get the better draft capital, so if I'm going to be hedging my bet on one of these guys, he's going to be the one. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a situation this year where Ferguson is the more productive tight end to start the year, but then as you get to games 12, 13, 14, and then essentially on into year 2, I think Schoonmaker will really kind of step in and establish a big rapport with Dak Prescott and become a solid fantasy producer for you. As we've seen in the past, Dak likes to use his tight ends. This is a guy that I'm stashing in pretty much every tight end premium league. May not work out, but it's not going to cost you a ton of draft capital to get him where he's going. So yeah, he's a good buy for me at this price. Coming in at tier 3, we have 3 guys here. Number 6, Darnell Washington of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Going to give him a dynasty outlook of a solid B, which is just basically a fantasy starter. For him, let's see here. We can't forget about the crazy showing he had at the draft combine. Of course, seeing all these tight ends go earlier in round 2, and then you see him drop clear down to the 30th pick in round 3. That it does have you drop him a little bit. For me, he was pre-draft number 3. This did move him down to number 6. That being said, you don't want to forget about what he showed off and the potential could be there. There are quite a few mouths to feed in Pittsburgh for this year. They have a Pat Freiermuth who's coming off of an injury, but he is the established starter there when he's healthy. Washington's another guy that is not arguably he is a better blocker than he is a pass catcher at this point. So that's a skill that could get him on the field fairly early in Mike Tomlin's offense there. I'm a big fan of him, especially now that his draft price has corrected a little bit. Before a lot of the mock drafts I was doing pre-draft, he was going, pretty much a lock in the mid-second round. Now you can get him, end of second, looking middle of the third, even some drafts that I've been in. I like that price a lot more, and I'm buying there. If you have a taxi squad, he's a guy that I want to throw on there just because the ceiling is literally through the roof with this guy. Coming in at number 7, we have Tucker Kraft, previously mentioned of the Green Bay Packers. He was drafted in the 3rd round, which is usually pretty good capital for a draft capital for a tight end. It just happened to be the Packers also took one in round 2 this year. With all that being said, it has seemed, at least to me, for the last couple of years that Matt LaFleur has wanted to go more run heavy there. So I would not be shocked to see them go with more 2 tight end sets this year and just a lot more run heavy. He's another guy here that kind of just falls in as a taxi squad stash for me. He was picked with the 15th pick in the 3rd round of the NFL draft. I'm going to give him an outlook of a B-. I don't know if I mentioned that or not, which kind of turns into a guy that I think is potentially streamable when he's a starter. Moving on to number 8, we have Brenton Strange of the Jaguars, also giving him a B- there. Pre-draft, he was my 10th ranked rookie tight end, and then again moved up to number 8 to round out tier 3 post-draft. Wasn't really super high on him post-draft, and I'm not honestly super high on him post-draft either, but his draft capital was a surprise, and when that type of thing happens, you have to at least take notice as a dynasty owner. Looking kind of down the road, the only other tight end on the roster there that's really worth mentioning is Evan Ingram, and he's just playing on a franchise tag this year. So with that fact, then you have Trevor Lawrence as ascending as one of the bright young star quarterbacks in the game. He's a guy that could potentially be a good year 2 and 3 play that you can get probably for close to free middle of the season. So I don't really see him producing a lot the first half of the first season at all. So there will be a second buy low window opportunity for him. And at that point, it might be worth just grabbing him, throwing him on the taxi squad, and just kind of seeing what happens down the road. Moving down to tier 4, we have 2 guys, and these are kind of the last 2 guys that I would say really need to be rostered in deeper 12-team leagues. They're more 16-team guys, but if you have deep benches, they're guys I think you should at least pay attention to. Coming in at number 9 is Josh Whyle. He pre-draft, he was also my 9th ranked tight end, so he stayed right where I had him to start it off. He has a dynasty outlook of C+, which turns into an upside backup player for you on your dynasty teams. He is one of my favorite deep taxi squad stashes, though. He has above average athleticism for a tight end. He has shown that when he has the ball in his hands, he can make guys miss and extend plays and become a yak monster there. He does project to be a pretty solid contributor in the passing game if he's able to carve out a role there in Tennessee. Moving down to number 10 and our last guy here in tier number 4, that is Cameron Latu with the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to give him a dynasty outlook as well of C+. Pre-draft, I had him at number 12. Another guy that jumped up a few spots to do the draft capital. I was honestly shocked to see him go in the 3rd round like he did. Went with the 38th pick in the 3rd round of the comp pick for the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan, though, he's the guy that is an offensive genius and has really found a way to maximize the potential of pretty much every offensive player that's came through his system. George Kittle's the obvious unquestioned starter there, but he is getting older and has been nicked up a few times in the past. Again, though, that being said, I'm not super high on him. There's a lot of wide receivers I like there. But anytime you have a tight end that gets top 3 round draft capital, you have to at least be aware of it. Probably not a guy you want to let sit on waivers in your deeper leagues. I'd at least want to keep him on a deeper bench or taxi squad spot if you have a chance, just because those are the ones, especially in your tight end premium leagues, that can pretty much swing leagues for you. Moving down to number 5, and this will be the last tier that we go super in depth with here today. Coming in at number 11 is Will Mallory of the Indianapolis Colts. Also had him at number 11 pre-draft, giving him a dynasty outlook of C-, which is kind of like best case, is more than likely like a deep league bench taxi squad guy that, hopefully can play a few bye weeks for you down the road in like a best case situation. Going to do just a couple quick hitters on these guys here. It's a new era in Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson. He's a guy that I was pretty big on pre-draft. Of course, everybody's big on pre-draft. But that being said, when you're looking at the tight end group there, I like Jelani Woods a lot more, and even to an extent, Mo Alley Cox, assuming he's back there again this year as well. So guys, you can probably leave on waivers for now, unless like some news comes out during training camps and OTAs that one of these guys is really, really flashing and has the coach's attention. Coming in at number 12 is Payne Durham. He was drafted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the 37th pick in the 5th round. Going to give him a dynasty outlook of C- as well. Similar to Mallory, I like Cade Otton, who's already there quite a bit more. And unlike Will Mallory, I do not like the quarterback situation in Tampa Bay at all. Best case, that is Baker Mayfield, which, I feel like he has a fairly limited ceiling. We've all seen what he can do at this point. So, yeah, not a guy I'm super high on. Number 13 here, though, Zack Kuntz. That is a guy that I think in your deeper leagues, you have deep bench. He's a guy that could be worth stashing just because you look at like his physical tools. Like he's one of the bigger guys in the NFL already at the tight end position. He's now going to be potentially catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. So if there's an injury there to Tyler Conklin or CJ Uzomah ahead of him, he's definitely a guy you want to pay attention to at that point. Anyone that has the potential to catch passes from Aaron Rodgers with that physical profile is worth a taxi squad stash at this point. Sorry about that. Number 14, we have Davis Allen of the Los Angeles Rams. I'm going to give him and Zack Kuntz outlook of D+, which means most likely they're going to be like waiver wire watch list guys. But again, just kind of pay attention just in case something crazy does happen once we kind of get into the season. Tyler Higbee has been pretty solid for the Rams the last few years, but he's 30 years old. If things go badly again this year, wouldn't be surprised to see the Rams kind of start looking towards, the future team and kind of turning it over to some of the young guys. At that point, then maybe Davis Allen is a guy that can step in and be kind of like a low-end tight end too while they're rebuilding until they find the guy that is really going to be their long-term tight end one of the future. Again, he's cleared out at number 14, had him at number 17 pre-draft, so not a guy I'm really spending a lot to go after, but definitely a guy I'm going to put on my watch list and just kind of see how everything plays out in the preseason. Rounding out my rookie tiers in tier 6, these are guys that I don't ever really see becoming fantasy relevant, but they were either drafted or guys that signed right away after the draft. So you need to at least pay attention to them and just see what happens just in case. Obviously, there's big guys that even in a best case are more than likely like 20 to 24 team leagues or deeper guys. Number 15, we have Brayden Willis. He was actually a guy I had completely unranked in the pre-draft process. Went with the 30th pick of round 7, so don't feel too bad about that necessarily. With the 49ers, who already, drafted another tight end in the 3rd round and have George Kittle there. So nothing really to pay too close attention to there. Number 16, we have Blake Whiteheart of the Arizona Cardinals. Going to give him a dynasty outlook of D-, which is basically just a guy that may make a roster, not really fantasy relevant. He went undrafted completely, but signed right away after. He was my 14th ranked player in the process, or my 14th ranked tight end in the pre-draft process. So he dropped to 16 after going undrafted. Coming in at number 17, we have Leonard Taylor of the Jaguars. Basically everything I said about Whiteheart could be said about Taylor as well. Also gave him a D-. He was ranked 15th pre-draft, went undrafted. He is 17th now. And then the last guy in the tiers today is going to be Daniel Barker. He is unsigned at this point and went undrafted. So there's a chance that, he could be playing in a different league this year. But yeah, that's going to round out these tight ends here. So we got 18 total of them. 14 of them in deep leagues, like deep leagues that you need to pay attention to. And then after that, I would say 10 total tight ends that your deeper 12 team leagues need to pay attention to. And then kind of coming up a little bit more from that, there's 8 guys that I would say in 12 team leagues really, really need to be focused on. So we'll go through these guys one more time. Quick recap. Number 1, we have Dalton Kincaid of the Buffalo Bills. Number 2, Michael Mayer of the Las Vegas Raiders. Number 3, Sam LaPorta of the Detroit Lions. Tier 2 and number 4 is Luke Musgrave. Number 5, Luke Schoonmaker of the Cowboys. Tier 3 and number 6 overall is Darnell Washington of the Steelers. Number 7, Tucker Kraft of the Green Bay Packers. Number 8, Brenton Strange of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tier 4 and number 9 is going to be Josh Whyle of the Titans. Number 10 is Cameron Latu of the 49ers. Tier 5 and number 11 overall is going to be Will Mallory of the Colts. Number 12 is Payne Durham of the Buccaneers. 13 is Zack Kuntz of the Jets. Again, that's the guy when you're talking about deeper. He's the guy I'm kind of keeping an eye on. Number 14, Davis Allen of the Rams. And then tier 6, number 15, Brayden Willis of the 49ers. 16, Blake Whiteheart of the Cardinals. 17, Leonard Taylor of the Jaguars. And then number 18, Daniel Barker, probably in the CFL or the XFL. But yeah, again, thank you guys all for tuning in today. If you can go back and check out the quarterback video I did 2 weeks ago, and then here in these next 2 weeks, we'll have breakdowns coming out for the running back and wide receiver class as well. Would love to have any recommendations or tips or comments, concerns, critiques that you guys have for me on these. If there's guys you'd like me to go back and take a little bit closer look at, maybe do a deep dive on them that way, hit me up on Twitter at Dyno NFL. You can see it like right in here below my face here. But yeah, until next time, thank you again for joining, and we'll be back here soon to talk about running backs.